Good evening. This is the SitRep where we offer analysis on current affairs. We're joined here today by Abdunur Mohamed Ahmed, former acting chief of staff during Farmajo's presidency, also former director of communications office of the president. Ali Halane, veteran journalist, political analyst, media owner now. That's right. Gentlemen, we are talking about the Ankara talks between Somalia and Ethiopia, mediated and brokered by Turkey. That was on 1st of July, on Somalia's 64th independence anniversary. But let's consider the outcome of these talks to begin with. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Somalia is saying there were differences in the discussions. They're saying the views were different. They're saying Somalia is still on the position that Ethiopia has to withdraw fast from the MOU before any tangible talks takes place. But the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Turkey is saying that the ministers were able to separately have a candid, cordial, forward-looking exchange concerning their differences and explored perspectives towards addressing them within a mutually acceptable framework. The statement goes further ahead and says the ministers of Somalia and Ethiopia reiterated their commitment to the peaceful resolution of differences and expressed their appreciation to Turkey for its facilitation. Now that the language, the tone is different. The host country, Turkey, is saying that the delegations from Somalia and Ethiopia both expressed candidly that they are willing in good faith to negotiate. But the Somali government is telling us, no, we were still firm on our position. So if you're still firm on your position, and the condition of Somalia had been since January that there are no talks unless Ethiopia withdraws from the MOU, what do you make of these separate statements? Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Hirmoge, for inviting me. This very informative and program that really focuses on the current developments, political developments in Somalia and as well as in the region. And before delving this topic deeper into this topic, let me go back a little bit history.
Okay.
Of how this situation has evolved over the years. And when Ethiopia invaded Somalia and left in 2009, when President Sharif Sheikh Ahmed was elected, there were positive and relationship between Villa Somalia and Arat Kilo administration, whether it was during Meles Zenaw's era or Haile Mariam, which was based on supporting Somalia's security sector as well as the stabilization of the country in the fight against Al-Shabaab. But things have changed when President Mohamed Abdullah Farmajo came to Villa Somalia. There were a change of direction when it comes to Ethiopia's foreign policy towards Somalia.
Also, Mogadishu was receptive towards Ethiopia, which was very different from how the
yes,
other two.
Yeah, you can see the relationship between the two countries have completely changed from supporting Villa Somalia's priorities and formally working with the federal member states to balkanize Somalia and create regional administrations that are not in line with the federal government.
All right.
So that Ethiopia can use any time to destabilize Somalia's internal politics. So when President Farmajo came to power, I was part of the delegation who visited Addis Ababa, the first state visit to Ethiopia. And I was also very fortunate to be part of those who has taken part in the bilateral discussions that took place. And we were very clear at that time that if Somalia and Ethiopia wanted to prosper, the balkanization and the dual track policy that has been, employed by the Western countries, and Ethiopia was an agent of that, fulfilling that policy. So we have to change that and, backtrack any political issues that was not consulted with the federal government of Somalia.
Fast forward January 2024, MOU.
Let me a bit add some very important information.
Okay.
Before signing the MOU in Addis Ababa between Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and Somaliland's Musa Bihi, there were 3 very important events that led to this, to this place where we are now in a 6 months diplomatic spat with Ethiopia.
Yes.
First of all, on 9th of August 2023, Ethiopian Transport Minister visited Hargeisa, Berbera.
Ale Musime.
Yes, and his visit was not a secret visit. It was tweeted by the Somaliland and by the Ethiopian government that Ethiopia wants to expand, its relations with Somaliland and get an alternative port. So that was very obvious. A month later, a high-level delegation led by the former Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, Demeqa Mukanin, visited Mogadishu. The delegation consisted of key ministries as well as the National Intelligence Agency director. And there were agreements between the 2 governments at the Kale, hotel, where our Deputy Prime Minister and the Ethiopian Deputy Prime Minister have held, a press conference concluding that we have a very successful and candid, agreements on many areas. So Ethiopia was trying to build its case.
This is all build up towards.
And finally, President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud was dragged into this saga when his main, team in the Somaliland talks have signaled that Musa Bihi wants more robust and more advanced talks in relation to Somaliland and federal government of Somalia talks. So apparently when the president flew to Djibouti to consolidate these efforts, it became, a stage where the Musa Bihi uses to justify his memorandum of understanding with the Ethiopian Prime Minister. So those events, if we do not understand the sequence of those events and their contribution to the MOU, we want to be able to understand where we are today. So this is a very important information that I want to share with you.
I'm going back to your first question that what the results or the outcome of the
differences in the tone.
We see here, as you mentioned, the press release by the Somali government and Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of Turkish Republic. Regardless to the differences, the wordings and language was diplomatic in the Turkish side. But what I see here, if we compare the result, we see the outcome is nearly 0, except to meet again in the 2nd of September.
So the main outcome of the Ankara talks was let's meet again in 2nd of September.
Yes.
And that leads me to ask, why are we meeting? What has changed? For 6 months, Somalia repeatedly said, we are not talking until Ethiopia revokes the MOU. Until Ethiopia officially withdraws from the MOU. Let me remind you this. The president in one of his many speeches in the mosque, at one point actually said Somalia's enemy number one today is Ethiopia, ranking them even ahead of Al-Shabaab. But then again, there is this meeting in Ankara that is not even face-to-face.
What happened is, according to some information, unconfirmed information practically, they say the Somali government was under pressure. Just
From whom?
To go to talk with the Ethiopians. For many countries, friends of Somalia, like maybe United States, European Union, and other stakeholders on Somalia and Ethiopia, and they were advised, according to the information, just to go to talk, regardless of the outcome.
Okay.
Because if you see, diplomatically, Somalia was in a good position. But practically, there was a tension and escalation and stagnant position in the talks. So they advised the Somali government just to go to talks and then see what the outcome will be.
Yeah.
Maybe some strong mediators like Turkey came in. And other mediators, we see, if we go back to the some months before, there was a Kenyan mediation, but it failed, and there was no other talks face to face. Then again, they said, and it may be rearranged again and start the talks, but the Turkish step in, and we all went to Ankara just to have face-to-face meeting first. But I don't know, something has changed. And face-to-face was cancelled, and it was we went back to the original style.
Abdul, what does he say about our foreign policy? Listen, January, Ethiopia signs MOU with a region of Somalia, that is Somalia, and the outcry in Mogadishu was very strong. Actually, even Parliament had discussed this issue. The cabinet had a few resolutions themselves. There was the decision from the cabinet that let's even close the consulates in Garowe and Hargeisa. Consulates that are still working today. Next, the talks have begun. So what does he say about our foreign policy? Can the Somali government say one thing and stick to it? Or better still, can they get the proper advice and measure their words before committing to something?
Mm-hmm. There is one thing that's very clear, and based on the experience we had with Kenya during the ICJ case, Somalia has little friends in the international community.
Very few friends.
Very few friends compared to...
And also very few powerful friends.
Yeah, compared to Ethiopia. And what we have learned as an official from the previous administration, we have been pushed by many countries, including countries we now consider an allies, and tried us to pressure into submission and withdraw the ICJ case and resolve this issue outside court settlements. At one point, President Formaggio was participating in the UN General Assembly in New York, and I was part of advance team. We were, at one point we were approached by the Egyptian embassy in New York that Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the president of Egypt, who was at that time the chairman of the African Union, wanted to resolve this. And it will be embarrassing that at the helm of the African Union, we are unable to resolve this issue with Kenyan government. So we accepted this meeting in a good faith, but apparently Kenyans wanted to use this opportunity to advance their agenda and tell the world that we are talking to the Somali government. We resisted, but finally we went there in a good faith. But we were very proactive in communicating to our public, and we have released minutes after the end of the meeting.
Yeah.
It was a trilateral meeting between
Yes.
Gele, President Formaggio, and President Gele, President Formaggio, and the President Sisi.
Yeah.
So we were very proactive in telling the Somali people that we are not negotiating or compromising this position. So I see the replay of same tactics by Somalia's friends. They reaffirm in declaring that we are reaffirming Somalia's territorial integrity and sovereignty and the political independence.
Yeah.
But that's on paper. We haven't seen any real action by
From
our
our supposed
Western
friends.
friends. Yes.
Yeah.
So going to Ankara, Somalia had a very successful diplomatic, campaign in the African Union, in the League of Arab States,
Correct.
and even in IGAD. So all the communique that has been issued by those
Were in support of Somalia.
were in support of Somalia. But going forward, and with the goodwill that we have for Ankara, I think it was good opportunity to talk to the Ethiopian government, but it could have been better if we start in a lower level discussions.
Speaking about being proactive, I think this government is also trying to be proactive, but only they're not executing it really well. See, for example, on the day the Minister of Foreign Affairs left with this delegation to Ankara, the ministry tweeted this. And the tweet from the verified Twitter page of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, it says, Foreign Minister is a company delegation left today for Ankara, where they will participate in talks between Somalia and Ethiopia mediated by the Turkish government. FGS is committed to its firm principles of protecting its territorial integrity. Now, this is a good tweet.
Yes.
It's really fantastic tweet. But then hours later, this tweet was removed.
Because the timing of the tweet can be read by many diplomatic circles that Somalia wants to go there, knowing that these talks will fail. So there were a preconceived, decision by the Somali government that we will accept the mediation of the Turkish government because it's an ally, it's a country.
But Somalia's position is known. Somalia's position is known. They have communicated this. The president has said this. There was a cabinet decision. There was a parliament decision. This is known. So but I don't understand why such a simple tweet has to be removed.
The confusion exists whether Somalia wants to talk to negotiate with Ethiopia with withdrawing the MOU with Somaliland, or Somalia wanted to normalize its diplomatic relations with Addis Ababa. We know Ethiopian ambassador has been sent back home. Somalia's ambassador were called.
Called, yes.
Yeah, were called. So it could have been wise if Somalia only seeks the normalization of the diplomatic relations rather than discussing.
Before Ali jumps in, I will ask you a very simple question. In your time, in President Formaggio's time, would this tweet have been removed?
It's a tricky question, but let me tell you one thing. I think the current government has a conflicting the way they communicate,
Yes.
and their communication strategy on many aspects related to counterterrorism, related to the troop drawdown of the armies, related to this issue. We see conflicting messages
Yes.
within the presidency. Maybe sometimes the president say we will talk to Al-Shabaab.
Yeah.
And a day later, his national security advisor was saying that no, we are not talking to Al-Shabaab unless they renounce.
Ali wanted to jump in.
According to the removing the Twitter,
Yes.
or X maybe, but still I'm
Yeah.
on
Yeah, let's
all the guard, so I use Twitter.
all right.
This is the first time that officially Somalia or Ethiopia announced that there's talks between Ethiopia and Somalia.
Yes.
All the previous back channels and talkings in Nairobi and elsewhere were very secret or very discreet, and no one announced it in Twitter or in any other official platform.
Yes.
So this was the first time first.
Yes.
Maybe the mediators wanted just to keep things discreet, and after the outcome, there may be some saying. So I don't know exactly why the Twitter is removed, but maybe
it's not
according to my perception comes from the mediators that they want to avoid any other complications before the talks happen.
Oh, perfect. Before we leave that,
but what Abdul has said recently is a problem of communication within the Somali government, and they always send mixed signals to in very short time. So that's what we have seen.
I mean, let's discuss the Somali delegation, for example.
Let me intervene this. You were part of the communication team at the presidency at one point. And you knew that the working relationship between the presidency and the prime minister and other arms of the government were integrated, and we have even playbooks for many areas, and we used to communicate. It wasn't very difficult to tell the people that what is going on. So I think the current government has to at least integrate and develop a very cohesive communication strategy that can at least create a sense of unity in their communication.
Yeah, because this tweet was good. This was good communication, official channel of the Somali government. It's a matter of foreign affairs. It's a foreign policy issue, and removing it is embarrassing, to say the least.
Right.
It's embarrassing to say the least. But that's not the only thing. Let's talk about the Somali delegation. Why do we have the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the State Minister of Foreign Affairs and many other top-level Somali officials in the delegation that is meeting in Turkey? That's not even face-to-face talks with the Ethiopian delegation.
We have been told that the delegations from both Ethiopia and Somalia are consisting of only 1+2 delegation. And of course, it's normal just to have a supporting team within the delegation with not official. That's okay. But what is not understandable is to send two ministers in the foreign affairs into the talks. Yes. Let alone talks are face to face or not face to face. This is another case.
Yes.
But sending two ministers in foreign affairs with same portfolio just to go to talks or to any other events in Turkey or in other place.
Yes.
This was something unfamiliar with the diplomacy.
Yes. And the norms, the international norms of doing diplomacy.
Right.
Go ahead.
So we have been told also, or there's a rumors circulating that there's a disagreement between inside the Somali delegations. Some wanted to have to sit with the Ethiopians face to face. Some wanted indirect communications and with the Turkish mediators or something like that. But at the end of the day,
we even here at one point calls were made to the Villa Somalia, to the president himself.
We cannot
as if sending two ministers is not enough.
Maybe when the mediators sensed that the Somali delegation is in trouble, they
What do you mean by in trouble?
they supposedly
that demands an explanation.
Maybe they talk to the president or something like that. We don't know. We cannot confirm that things, but this is the information circulating between the media.
And now that the government has not reacted to that, it validates the rumor. Because if this were a lie, there's a way to react to misinformation. So silence on the part of the government means it gives credit to whatever rumor is circulating around there, no?
Yes.
Yeah. To begin with the aspect related to the delegation that has been sent to Ankara, it was unwise decision to dispatch your foreign minister and a day later to send your state minister, even though we can understand that the state minister had at some point, months and months has been the lead foreign, the chief diplomat of the country in an acting capacity.
Yes.
And that might have given him an opportunity to get involved into this issue deeply than the incoming foreign minister. But I think what is tricky in this is that our state minister has been in Doha, hours before the discussions has commenced in Ankara.
Yeah.
And my friend Ali was telling me that the foreign minister also transited, was en route to Ankara via Cairo. So those might signal.
Speaks a lot about allies and.
So maybe even it was not something that was unknown. We have seen press releases and tweets for their respective visits. So maybe they were consulting with the allies in Doha and Cairo, but it was not good enough. It was not justifiable to send your foreign minister and your state minister. And again, I was told by a reliable, officials from the foreign ministry that the chief of staff of the presidency and the permanent secretary of the office of the prime minister were part of the delegation.
Of the delegation.
Yes. So
regarding to the allies, there is some information says even Ethiopians suggested in the meeting that Kenya and Djibouti to be included in the talks.
Okay.
Just to widen the discussion.
Yeah.
But Somali delegation reacted to that and they say we must include also other countries in the region like Egypt and Eritrea or maybe Saudi Arabia or Yemen to include the talks. And both of the suggestions failed to appear in the front of the mediator. So they continue to be...
No, but I can understand because there are differences between Eritrea. I can understand why Ethiopia would not want Eritrea and Egypt, for example. But I don't understand why Somalia wouldn't want Djibouti in the talks. It's
for me also, I don't know. Because Ethiopia has, Djibouti is a friend of Somalia and friend of Ethiopia itself.
Matter of fact. And let's now go to...
Djibouti itself wants to get involved into this saga because number one, Djibouti wants to play an outsider role in the geopolitical maneuvering that...
And also they were part of the back channels, Ethiopia, Kenya, and also Uganda. They were part of the back channels trying to mediate between Somalia and Ethiopia, but all of these
and it was in the early...
ended without result.
And it was, I think, the first country that has requested to mediate Somalia and Ethiopia because President Gale is now the chairman of the IGAD, Intergovernmental Authority on Development.
True.
So, given that he is the chairman, he wanted to involve it.
So all these back channels fails. Kenyan mediation intervention, Djiboutian intervention, and these are our neighbors, and they have troops in Somalia, for example.
Yes.
But then again, Turkey's intervention worked. Why?
Yes, because Turkey is an ally of Ethiopia, an ally of Somalia also, and it has signed an agreement, defense agreement and military agreement on economical agreement with
defense
yes
and security
with Somalia also. Regardless of that, it is an ally of Ethiopia and it is the second largest investor in Ethiopia after China. So it has a leverage just to carry out this initiative, and they succeed at least to bring together, the two sides together.
Why is Turkey interested in these talks? They're not even a neighbor. They're not in Africa. They're not in IGAD. They're not in the African Union. See member states of IGAD and the AU tried to mediate, and Somali government refused.
Don't forget, Turkey has a huge influence both in Ethiopia and Somalia. You see, when the Tigray war was going on, the Turkish who supported the Ethiopian government and to defeat the Tigray.
Okay.
Then come to the trade volume between Ethiopia and Turkey, it's about 2 billion or more or something like that, and go to also the investment, Turkish investment in Ethiopia. And I have mentioned now it is the second largest investment.
I understand all that. So are you saying Ethiopia probably approached Ankara to mediate?
That is what we have been told.
And
Ethiopians who engaged Turkey just to try to mediate.
And because you always listen to Turkey, we said, fine, let's meet in Ankara, but not face to face.
Turkey has a long-standing relationship, both diplomatically and economically, with both Ethiopia and Somalia.
Correct.
And the trade volume between Turkey and Ethiopia is far greater than the trade volume between Somalia when it comes to the export and import. Additionally, the proximity of Djibouti and Kenya might have, and their, interest in Somalia, because Kenya has KDF in parts of Somalia, and Djiboutian contingents are in some parts of Somalia. The proximity, I think, is one issue that Ankara, even though it has both, good relations with Somalia and Ethiopia, but there is a huge, goodwill for both Addis Ababa and Mogadishu. And in addition to that, there is an element of Qatar. Okay. There were Ethiopian delegation consists of the finance minister and the current, intelligence chief visited Doha weeks ago. And few days later, Sheikh Tamim was in contact with President Hassan.
So behind the curtain, there's also the Qatari influence.
There is a Qatari, involvement, and you have to know that Turkey and Qatar are working in tandem in resolving this issue. And there are other players, including the United Arab Emirates, who at some point had a good relations with Mogadishu, with Somaliland, and with Ethiopia. And then they have never tried to take advantage of this
a leading role in trying to mediate between the two countries.
And one Ethiopian diplomat I have met, weeks ago, told me that the Emirati are part of this project. They are part of this project. They wanted to build the naval base for Ethiopia. They were part of League of Arab States communique, the countries that reaffirm Somalia's territorial integrity and the political independence. They were telling their Ethiopian friends, we cannot, refuse any position in any Arab or OIC position. But we are telling you in private that we are with the Ethiopian.
After all, reaffirming territorial integrity.
Yes, we are
it's only on paper.
Our relationship is indispensable, and we are with you in private. We cannot challenge those, positions by. So I think there are many regional players, including those we have mentioned now, who are part of the problem or part of the solution.
Perfect. Gentlemen, in conclusion.
Yes.
I think these talks, these talks have been a big win for Ethiopia. And at the very least, nothing for Somalia. See, consistently, Ethiopia has said, let's talk. And finally, the talks happened and now are scheduled again for 2nd of September. And probably in the 2nd of September, these talks could be face-to-face.
Maybe. But we have now 2 months ahead of this. Or it is 2 months or more? September?
It's 2 months.
Yes, we have now 2 months ahead of the new appointment of meeting between the two sides.
Yes.
Turkish, I think, will leverage on that 2 months, and they will use their influence both in Ethiopia and in Somalia to secure some outcome better than what we have seen now.
What is a better outcome? Are we de-escalating Or are we telling Ethiopia to nullify?
That will depend on what will happen in these two things. I think this tells us that Ethiopia will not take any escalation decision or steps before that September 2nd. And Somalia will also wait that because we used to see Ethiopia escalating and Somalia escalating after escalation. If some unexpected didn't happen, I believe that the next 2 months will be calm months. Then Turkey will leverage on its huge influence on both sides and will exert its decisions or something like that. But people talk many times about is Turkish an ally of Somalia or is an ally of Ethiopia? I don't think it works like that.
Okay.
Turkey has a huge interest in Ethiopia and it has also huge interest in Somalia. Yeah. And if you compare the numbers and the history and everything, that we say the priority interest lies with Ethiopia. Turkish priority lies with Ethiopia and Somalia, it is like a complementary.
Correct.
So it has both the interests, but Ethiopia is a priority for
But Somalis are
if you compare the numbers
invested.
and history.
Somalis are emotionally invested.
Yes, that's right.
In Turkey being our friend and ally.
Yes.
But I think we disagree, my friend Ali, with this point due to the recent agreement between Somalia and Turkey, where Turkey has reaffirmed its willingness to support Somalia in various sectors, will give Somalia not a complementary role, but a very strategic and very important, both economically and politically, in maintaining that relationship and strengthening further to exploit our natural resources, offshore and onshore. Yeah. And Turkey is not trying, in my opinion, to appease Ethiopia or to advance Ethiopia's relationship in favor of Somalia. That is one point. The second point is that between now and September 2nd, two things might gonna happen. One is Ethiopia, which has failed in many attempts to meet the Somali officials in Nairobi, in Djibouti, in other places, have received at least a face-saving opportunity.
Correct.
To leave the MOU and to make a rapprochement with Villa Somalia. And it is the best interest of both countries to de-escalate and normalize their relations. So, in my opinion, nothing will going to happen between now and 2nd of September in relation to the implementation of the MOU, in relation to the recognition of Somaliland. So we will have a period of at least, tranquil, situation and de-escalation. Ethiopia have already started de-escalating.
The goal is to de-escalate. And
the goal is to de-escalate and give more room and more opportunity to resolve this issue peacefully. The second element in that this period will going to affect is that the withdrawal of the ATMIS,
yes.
In which Ethiopia is part of the African Union mission in Somalia. There are thousands of Ethiopian troops, both ATMIS and non-ATMIS. There were a concept of operation is going on where the Somali government wants us to complete the withdrawal of ATMIS by the end of this year. And this period might gonna affect that schedule.
I see.
Maybe Somali government will require further or additional time to
So you're saying it's also it's in the interest of Somali government to buy some time until they take care of other pressing issues between now and September 2nd?
I think, talks are always positive.
Correct.
Both sides to come together and discuss matters that are on the table. Somalia has, somehow refused to sit down with Ethiopian delegation on several occasions simply because they didn't want to negotiate or to put into the spotlight or to negotiate or to compromise the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the republic. But overall, I think this is very positive, even though Ethiopia can be termed as a victor in this discussions. But unless both delegations come together face to face and start negotiating, still there is a long way to go to resolve this.
Perfect. Ali, you got as a proverb this week?
Really, regardless of what some people call there is a loser here and winner here or something like that, I think what serves the two sides is what someone says negotiations and negotiations until the end and say and wada hadalno wa aan heshiino. So and that favors both sides.
In good faith.
In good faith, yes.
Thank you so much. So that does it for this week. See you next week right here on SitRep. Goodbye.